Are you looking for a life of freedom and flexibility? Do you want to have as much success with your family as you do in business? Here in the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast, we break down the barriers and bust the myths that are keeping you from living your best life at home and at work. You deserve a thriving family, rich faith, and business success. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast.
You have somewhere you want to go. You've got desires, dreams, aspirations, ideas of what a successful life looks like. But do you have a success comfort zone? I mean, be honest with yourself. Is there someone holding you back in life? Is your marriage, your health, your relationships, your business living up to its full potential? Are you the reason it could be holding back? Boy, today we have a topic that is deep, it's sticky, it's raw, but we want to discuss this idea of upper limit challenges and how mindset and upper limit challenges affect where you are and where you're going. And guys, let's be honest, this is not a one and done conversation. This is a conversation we'll probably have routinely because it's something that we deal with and everyone does if they're honest with themselves, because every level of success has upper limits. So this is a conversation we want to explore with you today. Now, guys, we were talking about this earlier, and we have all dealt with these ceilings of these upper limit challenges in our own lives and careers. Looking back, let's start out with and pull back the curtain on this idea of self-sabotage. Like, what does that look like when you have some measure of success or you have this upbringing that's self-sabotaging where you are and where you want to get to? What does that look like? Jamie, you have this story of being a teacher, but having these kind of entrepreneurial rumblings, if you will. What did that look like from you, for your perspective of getting to that entrepreneurial businessman and the success that you have today? Talk us through that journey.
Yeah, this is a deep conversation, right?
Open up the wound, buddy.
Okay. Let me start off by saying I remember what it felt like to be a teacher. And I specifically vividly remember one day opening up a district PDF file and seeing the steps from what I would make if I stayed in the position every year. And it was something like a 2.8% increase every year. And then you add some graduate classes to that and they bump you up another $1,500 or whatever it was. And to me, that just felt comfortable. I could hang out and do a better job, get good at what I did. And then when I was pushed out of the nest into something a little more scary, I was an entrepreneur. And now my paycheck and success was based on what I was going after. And I kind of acclimated to an above average income that felt really comfortable. I looked at not my W-2 because I was no longer an employee. I looked at my tax return and I was like, this is good enough. And then I started to spend time with people that would push me. I just remember thinking I was in that $65,000 to $80,000 a year range. And some people were telling me, like, why can't you do better? Like, what's holding you back? And I examined myself, and it was fear. It was like, what would happen? I felt like I didn't deserve that. What would other people think? All these different scenarios ran through my head. So I would say the big self-sabotage for me was a fear of being successful. It sounds funny hearing that come out of my mouth, but I think that's probably the best way to describe it.
That's such a powerful story, Jamie. I appreciate you sharing that. I know we have some of the same experiences growing up, and I remember just the philosophy and the thinking in the church environment that I grew up in. You know, one of the things that the church it was unsaid, but it was pretty clear to most people that were a part of it, is If you want to be holy, you're going to be frugal and you're going to live simply. And that was gospel for me. Growing up in that environment, just thinking, people that make a lot of money are probably taking advantage of somebody, or they're cheating, or they're lying, or they're self-serving, or they're arrogant. Something is wrong with them, and they're not doing things right. So I kind of grew up with this philosophy of it's good to have a career, something that is consistent and offers your family income and security, but not to the point where you're wealthy. You're getting outside of God's will if you're starting to make big bucks. And then, so here I am in school trying to position myself for one of those opportunities, one of those kind of even, steady careers that was honorable in that environment. But here's the problem. I wasn't that great in school. And so I struggled to even measure up for one of those careers. And I began to think a certain way about myself. And I ended up in the blue collar world thinking, well, I guess this is where I'm going to have to land. I'll never be good at business. I'll never be good at something great. It's probably not right anyway. And that was kind of my outlook on life. And even as I think about it now, it's so sad and so self-limiting to think about life in that way.
And I've got a similar type of upbringing, right? And church environment that I think there's kind of this idea that, like you said, it's unspoken, where do you deserve success? Do you deserve growth and progress? Or is there just enough comfort and satisfaction in knowing what your career and your job is going to be like, and what, like, you kind of have the future laid out for you? And really, this is part of even just the school and educational system that we're part of, right? Take the test like this, you'll get good grades, you'll go to college, you'll get this degree, and you got 40 to 45 years to make a pretty safe and satisfactory life. And I think if that's part of what we've been fed for our lives, that alone is an upper limit challenge that I think just about anyone in the United States has to kind of get through. And so, what are those habits or the self-talk, right? Like, part of this is our self-talk of subconsciously what's happened in our lives, what's occurred in our life's journey to this point that puts a lid on a successful business, a thriving marriage and family, our health. I mean, there's so many things that are not just about the business side of life, but other areas that we want to talk about thriving in. And so, what is it? I mean, where are the bottlenecks, if you will, in terms of our growth? I mean, have you guys had experiences where you knew, like, there's something that I'm doing, there's something that's going on here that is holding me back from my full potential?
Yes.
Yes and yes.
That's all I'm going to say, because I'm really afraid to lean into this. So along with this concept of upper limit challenge is moving from a zone of excellence, which could also be something you call excellence, something that you're really gifted in, to a zone of genius. A mentor of ours calls the zone of genius your calling, what God made you to do. So no one else could do the same thing. This is your thing. When we were talking about this earlier before this call, I think we all agreed that we felt very uncomfortable saying that we were in a zone of genius in any area of our life. To me, that's limited. I think of God, who he is, and what he thinks of us. And we're all dads, the entrepreneurial family men. Imagine us really not wanting our kids to do what they were called to do. That's ridiculous, right? That's
Heck yeah.
That's what we want to do for our children, is have them flourish, to come into a spot that it's authentic. Nobody else could do it. It is their calling. It is their zone of genius. And yet with ourselves, we don't even want to go there, because what's behind that, guys? What do you think?
Man, I think life kicks you around. You have experiences. People tell you things. You see other people go through things and fail. And as a result of life, we start to develop a narrative in our heads about ourselves. I have some stories about that. I don't want to get too deep into it, but there's some things that have happened to me in my life that have caused me to think a certain way about who I am and what's possible for me. And sometimes it's hard to differentiate what our real identity is and who we are and what we're made to be and what's true. So we experience something, we develop this narrative in our head, and it's either coming from a place of our reaction to ways that we have been hurt or knocked down in life, or it's coming from a place of truth. And I am on a constant journey to figure out which is which.
Could you, Michael, would you be willing to share one of those little stories with us? Maybe it might inspire me to lean into my zone of genius or calling.
Yeah, I would be happy to. You asked for it, Jamie, so you open up the can here.
Guys are afraid to open their cans to each other. So
yeah, I know, especially, yeah, okay. We'll just move on from that one. Can we edit this out?
You guys ever have deja vu?
All right. Well, I'll give you an example of what this could look like. So in my own life, this was a period of discovery for me where I was struggling. I was kind of digging into my past, and I recalled this experience where there was a person in my life, an older adult who's in a leadership position, and he just one day was having a horrible day and laid into me, made me feel about 1 inch tall. And, that happens. People get yelled at as their kid when they're kids. But the most destructive part of that interaction was what I walked away with thinking about myself. So I went through this, after that experience, I walked away thinking, I'm a coward. And I can't even stand up for myself when I know that I didn't do anything wrong or when I'm right. And so I had this thing of, first of all, you can't trust authority. And second of all, you're a coward and you can't stand up for yourself. And so later on in life, what that looked like is here I am in English class in high school. I get called on, or everybody raises their hand because the teacher wants to know if we have the answer. I have the answer. I know that I have it right, and I stay silent, don't even raise my hand because what narrative is going through my head? You're a coward. You can't even stand up for yourself when you know you're right. And by the way, you can't trust authority either. And this narrative going through my head was with me all the way up through my 20s. And it held me back from taking risks on so many things, from owning who I am, from stepping forward into what God's calling was on my life. And it wasn't true. It came out of this experience that I had a long time ago as a kid. And we all have experiences like that.
Wow.
That is good. That's powerful, man. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
Good question, Coach Jamie.
Yeah. And as far as the zone of excellence, moving into the genius/calling part, if you have mindset and upper limits like that you're a coward, you could never accomplish what you could. You had to get over that. Yeah. Sometimes in these circles, people say, "Oh, don't focus on the windshield, never look in the rearview mirror." But man, when you got a big monkey on your back, you got to fling that sucker off. So well done, Mr. McGreevy. That was awesome. I'm inspired.
No, that's good. For me, we were talking about this, about where there are certain time periods in our lives where we've all had a measure of success, in our businesses. And I look back a few years ago, I had pretty measurable and constant average growth, right? But I hit a plateau. I really did. And I think a lot of it was due to some of these upper limit challenges where I kind of figured, I'm fairly comfortable and where I'm at and we're fine. But I wasn't ready to kind of get to that next level. And I really had to come to terms with and to grips with myself of I'm probably too much of a micromanager in certain areas. And if we're ever going to grow beyond a certain point, I've got to release that. I've got to get over my own fear that someone could either fail in doing what I did, or on the other side of the coin, do better than I was doing. And that was awesome for me to actually see, like, if I release certain roles of leading my company to other people who, like we're just talking about, are their zone of genius, their strengths, their gifts are in these areas. And if I can pay someone to do that, then maybe, just maybe, we'll grow even more. And that's actually what happened. And it was cool to see looking back, right? In terms of, once I got over some of that stuff in my own head, in my own self-talk, there was further growth and that plateau was overcome. So, I mean, you guys have had those experiences, right? I mean, Jamie, you've got a great story in that. Can I put you on the spot and talk through your journey to doing what you're now doing? And you've had years of success with that, but there was this ceiling that you're pushing up against, but you finally have broken through that. So talk about that, just the mindset around even some figures, if you will.
I think going over that six-figure mark on my Schedule C, that was probably the most difficult thing, because I had told myself, you're not that person, for so many years. And it was a lack of believing that I deserved to have success. I was afraid of success, like I said earlier. More recently, in the last couple of years, I've launched my shingle as a life coach, life and business coach. And then I had these clients that trust in me. And the same sort of thing. This is what goes on in my head. Who are you to be the guide for that person? And what I had to see, and I learned this from my mentors, which was very helpful, being around other people that were in the same spot. I was the guy that they had. Okay. They didn't have Dan Miller or Tony Robbins on the line. They had me. Or Michael McGreevy, right? They didn't have like a high performance guy who
Jamie,
gets paid $1 million per client, like Michael. Okay. Maybe 1 million pesos. I'm not sure what the exchange is, but I think a big paradigm shift with this upper limit challenge is that we look at ourselves and we say, I don't deserve this. But what about the people who we're called to serve? Do they deserve a good dad, a good husband, a good coach? And we know the answer, that obviously they do. I know it's really, really touchy feeling, this conversation, but the fact is, when we have a new challenge ahead of us that we have to stretch for, we have these self-doubts and they're sabotage. Like, why would you have a great date with your wife and be making progress in that relationship and all of a sudden things just blow up for no reason? Because you're leaning into something that's great. Oftentimes there's something behind the emotion that we don't even know is there. And our mind and our subconscious is saying, you don't deserve to be happy.
Yeah.
It's like, why should you have a great marriage? Why should you have a family? And all that baggage that goes along with it, maybe we didn't have the best examples around us. So, I mean, there's so many different factors in this.
Yeah. And it's almost confirmation when things blow up, right? You try to make changes and then it blows up in your face. And then it's easy to say in your own mind, see, I don't deserve this. See, I always screw things up. See, I am a failure, or whatever that narrative is in your mind.
Yeah.
And I just remember being a blue collar guy. I was in the construction world for a long time. And I always had this thought of, I couldn't make it in school. I was terrible at math. So there's just no way I'm going to be able to run a business in a legitimate way. So I guess that's just never going to happen. I'm going to have to kind of sneak by and do the absolute bare minimum just to keep this business going, because I'll always be that blue collar guy. There you go. There's that narrative of that self-limiting belief that kept coming up. But that wasn't true. It just was, the truth was, I just hadn't done it well yet. And I could grow into becoming somebody that can operate a business well. So you don't know how to read a spreadsheet or do a math problem? You can learn that. You can develop those skills. If this is what you're being called to do, and this is what you want to do, and you want to pursue this, you're going to certainly come up against challenges and obstacles, and you will have to grow to become that person that can have that thing that you want. But here come those self-limiting beliefs and upper limit challenges along the way. Go ahead, Jamie. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm wondering, it's a real question that I'm going to ask. How does somebody go, let's say they have one thing that they're trying to accomplish. For example, leaving a job and starting a successful business. How can they go from thinking they don't deserve it to really owning the fact that they deserve to have that success, that they deserve to have the life of freedom?
Isn't that the big question here today?
It's the holy grail of questions. Yes. Related to that, Jamie, and I wanted to brag on Michael about this and just your answer there earlier, Michael, but it made me think of something that, we're all part of a mastermind. We're going through this book by John Maxwell together. And I had written this down. I just thought of this quote from that chapter we read recently, where he says, one of the main keys to being successful and fulfilling your purpose is to understand your unique talents and find the right arena in which to use them. And man, I think of you because we've talked about this in your story before about how you were leading men before being the coach that you are. You were leading Bible studies. You were having the conversations when guys were hitting the wall or facing a crisis. And you knew within your heart of hearts that there's something here. And Lord, there is really something here. And it really wasn't until you discovered and saw the example of Dan Miller where you realize whoa, here's an example of a guy doing what I kind of feel called to do. And he's getting paid for it. He's killing it. Maybe there is something here. Maybe this is my arena. And, I thought of that as you were speaking. And Jamie, I think it dovetails into your question about what are those arenas where we can use our unique talents, abilities, and skills to deliver value to the world. I mean, that's the question we've all got to ask ourselves really on a routine basis too. Just like we bring our cars in to get maintained and checked, we've got to have these things, these schedules where we just kind of come back to, am I in alignment with that calling?
Yeah. There is someone out there who's may not be doing exactly what you want to do, but they're close and maybe they're doing something similar. And I think for me, that was huge. When I saw an example of somebody coaching and changing people's lives and becoming very successful in the process, it gave me a new picture of what was possible for me. So isn't that so crucial to have an example of somebody that is doing what you want to do or something similar that you can model yourself after? Because for me, before, coaching or helping guys or helping people see their potential was exclusive to ministry. You had to be at a church or in a Bible study in order to do that. And here comes Dan Miller and shows me this entirely new way of doing it. And not only was he successful, but he was doing that full time and helping hundreds of thousands of people. How many people can I help if I limit myself to the world of ministry? Just the people within that church and maybe a few other surrounding. But by going all in and making this your career, pursuing it with everything you have, pursuing it as your calling, your potential to change lives expands exponentially.
Jamie, you were talking earlier about how you envision, from our faith perspective, you envision how God looks at us and our potential and the way that we look at even our kids. Expound upon that.
It's really hard to read the label when you're inside the jar. I think that's what we do. I think that's why we don't have mercy on ourselves. That's why we self-sabotage, because we don't have perspective. The big shift that we have to do is to start to love ourselves and to have mercy on ourselves. It sounds really simple, but I think that is the start of it all.
Man, that is so good. It sounds a little cheesy. Some of the guys are getting a little uncomfortable right now, or wherever you're listening. If you're getting a little uncomfortable, maybe that's for you. But dads, you would lay down in traffic for your kids. You do anything for them. And you want them to conquer the world. You want them to have everything. You want them to become everything they could become. But when it comes to you and yourself, you feel this, well, just maybe not for me. But guess what? Your Heavenly Father feels that same way about you. He wants you to throw off the shackles, to step forward with confidence and step into who He made you to be. He wants that for you. And it's for His glory, and it's for the service of others. We cannot let these upper limit challenges hold us back anymore. It's not just about us. It's about what's going to be accomplished through us.
That's so good, Michael. And I think that's, we're going to wrap up there and just ask that question. What is it? What is it for you? How could you address your upper limit challenges? Today, we've addressed the subject. We've talked about self-sabotage. Spend a minute just talking through and thinking through yourself. Where am I sabotaging myself and my success? What could I do differently? What's your calling? Seriously spend some time going through these type of questions, because I think it's a powerful exercise to really unleash what it is that our Father wants and He wants to use in our lives. And I'm going to end with this quote from Carl Jung, who says, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." Until next time, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast. For show notes, resources, and to connect with us, visit www.entrepreneurialfamilyman.com.